Ladies and gentlemen, life is a relentless struggle. It is suffering, it is chaos, and it is burdened with responsibility. And if you refuse to take responsibility, if you allow yourself to drift aimlessly, you will find yourself lost, resentful, and weak. But here's the truth. You are not meant to be weak. You are meant to stand up straight with your shoulders back, to carry the weight of your existence with dignity, and to confront the challenges that life inevitably throws at you. So ask yourself, what's stopping you from fixing yourself right now? Not tomorrow, not next week. Now. Because if you don't take action, you will decay, and no one else will come to save you. The only way forward is through discipline, responsibility, and an unshakable commitment to self-improvement. Taking responsibility is the foundation of self-transformation. Without it, you are at the mercy of circumstance, blaming external forces for your failures while remaining stagnant. Responsibility is not just about admitting fault. It is about recognizing that your life is, to a large degree, under your control. The moment you accept that, you gain the power to change. It is far easier to play the victim, to say that life is unfair, that society is against you, that your upbringing, your genetics, or your environment have determined your fate. But that mindset strips you of agency, leaving you powerless and resentful. Resentment, in turn, leads to bitterness, and bitterness leads to self-destruction. The only way out of this cycle is to stop blaming and start acting. Life is inherently difficult, full of suffering and obstacles, but that does not mean you are doomed to failure. The truth is, your response to hardship determines your trajectory. If you see yourself as a passive participant, merely reacting to what happens around you, then you will always feel like life is happening to you rather than because of you. But when you take responsibility, you shift your mindset. You begin to see that while you may not control every event, you always control your response. That realization alone is powerful. Consider a person stuck in a dead-end job, constantly complaining about their boss, their coworkers, or the unfairness of their industry. They see themselves as trapped, as if they have no choice but to endure their misery. But what if they took responsibility instead? What if they asked, what can I do to change this situation? The answer might not be easy. It might require learning new skills, taking risks, or making sacrifices. But the alternative, remaining stuck and bitter, is far worse. Responsibility forces you to stop waiting for someone else to fix your problems. No one is coming to save you. No one is going to hand you the life you want. It is up to you. When you refuse to take responsibility, you become a slave to your emotions, reacting impulsively instead of acting with purpose. You make excuses, rationalizing why you are not where you want to be. I wasn't given the right opportunities. I don't have the talent. It's too late for me. These are lies you tell yourself to avoid the discomfort of change. But discomfort is necessary. Growth comes from struggle, and struggle requires effort. When you take responsibility, you stop avoiding that effort and start embracing it. You acknowledge that you are the common denominator in your life, your relationships, your career, your mental state. All of it is, in some way, shaped by your actions and decisions. That truth can be uncomfortable, but it is also liberating. If your life is in your hands, that means you can mold it into something better. The process is not instantaneous. Taking responsibility is not about making a grand declaration and expecting immediate change. It is about daily discipline, about consistently making choices that align with the person you want to become. It is about setting a standard for yourself and refusing to settle for less. That means no more blaming others when things go wrong. No more indulging in self-pity. No more waiting for the right time to start improving. The time is now, and the person responsible for that change is you. People often resist responsibility because it is heavy. It comes with pressure, expectations, and the possibility of failure. If you take full responsibility for your life, then every failure is your failure. Every shortcoming is your shortcoming. That can be daunting. But the alternative, living without responsibility, is far worse. A life without responsibility is a life without purpose, without growth, without meaning. It is a life of passivity where you drift from one situation to the next, hoping that something or someone will magically change your circumstances. That is a fantasy. Real change only comes when you accept that you are in control, that your choices matter, and that you alone determine the path your life takes. Some people will say that taking responsibility is too simplistic, that external forces play a larger role than personal effort. And of course, there are real obstacles in life: trauma, inequality, unforeseen tragedy. But what is the alternative? To give up? To accept defeat? That is not a viable solution. You may not control every aspect of your existence, but you control far more than you think. You control your mindset, your actions, and your ability to improve. The first step is accepting that truth. It's time to stop making excuses. It's time to fix yourself right now. Discipline is the ability to do what is necessary, even when you do not feel like doing it. It is the choice to push forward despite discomfort, to delay gratification in favor of something greater. The modern world encourages immediate pleasure, easy entertainment, fast food, endless distractions. Everywhere you turn, there is something designed to pull you away from effort and lull you into complacency. But complacency breeds weakness, and weakness leads to suffering. If you prioritize comfort over discipline, you will eventually pay the price. The price comes in the form of regret, stagnation, and a life that feels meaningless. The alternative is to willingly accept difficulty, to embrace struggle, and to use it as a tool for transformation. People often assume that discipline is something you are born with, that it is a trait reserved for the naturally driven. But discipline is not a feeling, it is a skill. And like any skill, it can be developed through consistent effort. It starts with small choices, the kind that seem insignificant in the moment, but compound over time. Waking up early instead of sleeping in. Choosing to read a book instead of scrolling through social media. Sticking to a workout routine when you would rather rest. These are the daily battles that determine your future. If you lose them often enough, you will wake up one day wondering why your life is not where you want it to be. Comfort is seductive because it provides relief in the short term. It feels good to procrastinate, to indulge, to avoid responsibility. But what feels good now often leads to pain later. The workout you skip today weakens your body over time. The junk food you eat in excess destroys your health. The hours wasted on mindless entertainment rob you of skills, knowledge, and purpose. The small indulgences accumulate, and before you realize it, years have passed, and you are no closer to the person you wanted to become. Discipline is the counterforce to this decline. It is the recognition that what is easy is rarely what is good, and what is hard is often what leads to growth. The mind is designed to seek comfort, to conserve energy, to avoid unnecessary struggle. This was useful in a world where survival was uncertain. But in the modern era, it has become a liability. When everything is readily available, when distractions are endless, the ability to impose discipline upon yourself is more important than ever. It is the defining factor between those who succeed and those who merely drift. Those who succeed are not necessarily the most talented, the most intelligent, or the most fortunate. They are the ones who show up every day, regardless of how they feel, and put in the work. Discipline does not mean ignoring pleasure entirely. It does not mean living a life of constant hardship with no enjoyment. Rather, it means understanding that true satisfaction comes from progress, from accomplishment, from the mastery of self. A disciplined life is one where you are in control, where your impulses do not dictate your actions. It is a life where you choose what is right over what is easy, not because it is convenient, but because you know that the cost of undisciplined living is far greater than the effort required to maintain control. One of the most common excuses for avoiding discipline is the belief that motivation is necessary to take action. This is false. Motivation is fleeting. It comes and goes, dependent on mood, circumstance, and energy levels. If you rely on motivation to take action, you will never be consistent. The disciplined person acts regardless of how they feel. They do not wait for inspiration to strike. They create their own momentum by showing up every single day. And as they continue to show up, something powerful happens. Their identity begins to shift. They stop seeing themselves as someone who struggles with discipline and start seeing themselves as someone who's disciplined. Identity is shaped by action. If you repeatedly act in a disciplined manner, even when it is difficult, you reinforce the idea that you are a disciplined person. Over time, this self-image becomes self-sustaining. You no longer force yourself to be disciplined. You simply are. But this transformation does not happen overnight. It requires time, patience, and a willingness to endure discomfort. There will be moments of doubt, moments where the easier path is tempting. Those are the moments that define you. Those are the moments where you either fall back into old patterns or push forward into a new version of yourself. The world is full of people who had potential but lacked the discipline to realize it. Talent means nothing without the effort to refine it. Intelligence is wasted without the discipline to apply it. The ability to work hard, consistently and relentlessly, is what separates those who build something meaningful from those who remain stuck in mediocrity. The question is not whether you are capable of discipline. The question is whether you are willing to endure the discomfort necessary to develop it. Chaos is unavoidable. It exists in every corner of life, waiting for the right moment to strike. It appears in the form of uncertainty, failure, fear, and suffering. No one is immune to it, and no one can escape it indefinitely. The only real choice is whether you will face it or allow it to consume you. Many people spend their lives running from chaos, avoiding difficult truths, suppressing uncomfortable emotions, and distracting themselves with fleeting pleasures. But avoidance does not eliminate chaos. It only allows it to grow in the shadows, gaining strength until it becomes impossible to ignore. Confronting chaos requires courage. It means willingly stepping into the unknown, acknowledging your weaknesses, and admitting that you do not have everything under control. It is an unsettling realization, but it is also the first step toward personal transformation. When you face the chaos within you, you begin to understand yourself on a deeper level. You see the habits, fears, and unresolved pain that have shaped your decisions. You recognize the patterns that have kept you stuck. You realize that many of your problems are not random. They are self-imposed, the result of neglecting the very things that needed your attention the most. Chaos thrives in avoidance. Every problem left unresolved festers and grows. A small habit of procrastination turns into a life of missed opportunities. A moment of dishonesty turns into a pattern of deception. An unwillingness to address personal flaws leads to a lifetime of stagnation. Chaos does not remain static. It spreads. What starts as a minor issue becomes a defining feature of your existence if you do not confront it early. The longer you avoid it, the more control it gains over you, and the harder it becomes to reclaim your own life. Fear is one of the main reasons people refuse to face chaos. It is easier to ignore a problem than to admit that it exists. It is easier to stay in an unfulfilling job than to risk the uncertainty of pursuing something greater. It is easier to remain in a toxic relationship than to face the loneliness of walking away. It is easier to numb emotional pain than to work through it. But easy is not the same as good. The avoidance of chaos does not eliminate fear, it amplifies it. The unknown does not become less terrifying the longer you ignore it. It becomes more powerful, more overwhelming, and more capable of dictating your life. The only way to shrink chaos is to confront it directly. That means having the hard conversations, admitting your own flaws, and taking full responsibility for your circumstances. It means looking at the areas of your life that you have neglected and asking why you have allowed them to remain in disorder. It means no longer pretending that everything is fine when you know deep down that it is not. It means challenging the beliefs that have kept you comfortable but stagnant. When you face chaos, you gain clarity. You begin to understand what has been holding you back, and you see that many of your fears were exaggerated illusions created by your own mind. You realize that discomfort is not something to be avoided, but something to be used as a tool for growth. The strongest people are not those who have never faced chaos, but those who have confronted it head-on and emerged stronger. There is no guarantee that facing chaos will be easy. It may involve pain, struggle, and temporary discomfort. It may require sacrificing old habits, letting go of certain people, or dismantling long-held beliefs. But there is no other way forward. The alternative is to remain trapped in a cycle of avoidance, allowing chaos to dictate your future while you remain powerless against it. When the path to strength, resilience, and meaning is forged through the willingness to confront what is difficult and uncertain. Your external world is often a reflection of your internal state. When your life is in disorder, it is usually because you have allowed chaos to take root in your habits, your mindset, and your daily actions. It does not happen all at once. It happens gradually in small, seemingly insignificant choices that accumulate over time. You neglect responsibilities, push aside difficult conversations, procrastinate on important tasks, and tolerate things you know are not right. Over weeks, months, and years, These small acts of disorder add up until you find yourself living in a situation you barely recognize, one that feels beyond your control. But it is not beyond your control. You have simply ignored it for too long. The first step to reclaiming your life is to set your house in order, both literally and metaphorically. This does not mean achieving perfection or eliminating every problem overnight. It means identifying the areas of your life that are in disarray and taking deliberate action to fix them. Look around you. Is your environment cluttered, messy, and chaotic? Is your schedule disorganized and filled with wasted time? Are your relationships strained due to unresolved issues and unspoken resentment? These are not random occurrences. They are the result of neglect. And neglect, when left unchecked, leads to disorder. Start with the simple things. Clean your room, organize your workspace, and create structure in your daily routine. These actions may seem trivial, but they are symbolic. They represent your willingness to take control, to impose order on chaos, to make even the smallest parts of your world better. When you take care of the details, you send a message to yourself that you are capable of managing bigger challenges. If you cannot bring order to the space around you, how can you expect to bring order to the larger aspects of your life? Once your external world is in order, you must turn your attention inward. Your thoughts, emotions, and behaviors are just as susceptible to disorder as your physical environment. Are you plagued by negative self-talk, irrational fears, or lingering resentment? Do you allow emotions to control you instead of managing them with clarity and discipline? Do you avoid difficult truths because they are uncomfortable to confront? Internal chaos is often more dangerous than external disorder because it is harder to see. But it manifests in your actions, in your relationships, and in the way you approach challenges. Setting your house in order requires ruthless honesty. You must be willing to acknowledge the things you have been avoiding, the bad habits, the toxic influences, the destructive patterns. It requires taking responsibility for your role in creating or maintaining disorder. It is easy to blame external circumstances, but as long as you see yourself as a victim, you remain powerless. Power comes from acknowledging that even if you did not create the problems in your life, you are responsible for fixing them. Disorder thrives in vagueness. If you do not have clear goals, values, and priorities, you will be easily swayed by distractions, impulses, and external pressures. Define what matters to you. What kind of person do you want to be? What kind of life do you want to build? Without a clear vision, you will drift aimlessly, allowing disorder to creep back in. Structure is not restrictive. It is liberating. It provides the foundation upon which meaningful progress is built. The process of setting your house in order is not a one-time event. It is a continuous effort, a daily commitment to maintaining discipline and clarity. Chaos does not disappear forever. It constantly tries to reassert itself. If you are not vigilant, it will return, and you will find yourself slipping back into old patterns. That is why consistency is key. It is not enough to clean your space once or make a single effort to improve your mindset. You must build habits that reinforce order, discipline, and growth every single day. People often resist structure because they associate it with restriction, but the truth is that a lack of structure is what leads to suffering. When there are no clear rules, no guiding principles, and no sense of direction, life becomes overwhelming. Every decision feels chaotic, every challenge seems insurmountable, and every failure appears final. But when you establish order, you create stability. You create a framework that allows you to handle difficulties with strength and resilience. You create a sense of control over your own destiny. The company you keep has a profound effect on who you become. The people you surround yourself with influence your thoughts, your habits, and your worldview. If you spend time with individuals who are negative, lazy, or directionless, it is nearly impossible to remain unaffected. You will start adopting their mindset, their patterns, and their limitations, often without realizing it. Human beings are social creatures, deeply influenced by their environment, and the people you associate with shape the trajectory of your life in ways that are both subtle and powerful. It is not just about avoiding outright toxic individuals, though that is certainly important. The real danger lies in surrounding yourself with people who are merely complacent, people who lack ambition, who make excuses, who settle for mediocrity. They may not be actively destructive, but their passive acceptance of an unfulfilled life is contagious. It creates an invisible ceiling on what you believe is possible. You begin to lower your standards, to rationalize stagnation, to adopt their excuses as your own. If everyone around you is comfortable with mediocrity, it becomes easier to convince yourself that striving for more is unnecessary. Conversely, when you surround yourself with people who are disciplined, driven, and focused, their energy pushes you to elevate yourself. They do not allow you to make excuses. They do not validate your self-pity. They challenge you to think bigger, to work harder, to push past your perceived limitations. Their mindset becomes your mindset. Their ambition fuels the standards they hold themselves to become the standards you begin to adopt. One of the biggest indicators of personal success is the quality of your relationships. If the people around you are always complaining, blaming others, and avoiding responsibility, you will unconsciously absorb their habits. Even if you try to resist, the negativity seeps in. Their worldview becomes your default perspective, shaping how you approach problems, opportunities, and setbacks. But if you are surrounded by individuals who hold themselves accountable, who take ownership of their lives, and who are constantly improving, you will naturally rise to meet that standard. Evaluating your current circle requires brutal honesty. Are the people you spend time with pushing you forward or holding you back? Are they encouraging your growth or reinforcing your worst habits? Do they inspire you to be better? Or do they make it easier for you to justify staying the same? These are difficult questions, but they are necessary. Many people cling to unhealthy relationships out of fear. Fear of loneliness, fear of conflict, fear of change. But staying connected to people who limit your growth is far more dangerous than being alone. Growth often requires separation, and that separation is not an act of cruelty. It is an act of self-preservation. Cutting ties with negative influences does not mean becoming arrogant or dismissive. It does not mean looking down on others. It means recognizing that your time and energy are valuable and should not be wasted on people who drain you. It means understanding that you cannot save those who refuse to save themselves. It means prioritizing relationships that elevate you rather than ones that drag you down. Finding the right people to surround yourself with requires intentionality. Seek out individuals who are disciplined, who have strong values, who are constantly striving to improve. These people may not always be easy to find, but they exist. You may have to step outside your comfort zone, engage in new environments, and put yourself in spaces where high achievers gather. Be willing to learn from those who are ahead of you. Accept guidance, ask questions, and absorb their wisdom. At the same time, strive to be the kind of person that high-caliber individuals want to associate with. If you want to be surrounded by disciplined, driven people, you must embody those qualities yourself. You must be someone who takes responsibility, who follows through on commitments, who operates with integrity and purpose. Strong people are drawn to others who share their mindset. If you cultivate discipline, resilience, and ambition within yourself, you will naturally attract others who do the same. The people around you either reinforce your best qualities or amplify your worst. Every interaction you have is either sharpening your mind or dulling it, either pushing you forward or pulling you back. Being selective about who you allow into your life is not selfish. It is necessary. Your future is too important to be shaped by those who are not committed to growth. Taking responsibility for your life is one of the most difficult but necessary decisions you will ever make. It is far easier to blame circumstances, to point fingers at others, to attribute failure to bad luck or unfair treatment. The world is filled with people who refuse to take responsibility for their situation, who spend their lives waiting for someone else to fix their problems, who believe that external forces have complete control over their destiny. But this mindset is a trap. The moment you surrender responsibility, you surrender power. You become a passive participant in your own life, allowing events, other people, and circumstances to dictate your path. No matter where you are in life, no matter how difficult your past has been, no matter what unfair situations you have encountered, you are still responsible for what happens next. This does not mean that everything is your fault. It does not mean that life is always fair. But responsibility is not about fault. It is about control. The moment you accept responsibility for your situation, you gain the power to change it. You stop seeing yourself as a victim and start seeing yourself as the architect of your own future. Many people resist responsibility because it is uncomfortable. It requires admitting that they have contributed to their own struggles. It requires acknowledging weaknesses, confronting bad habits, and accepting the consequences of past decisions. But discomfort is not an enemy. It is a guide. It is a signal pointing to the areas of life that need attention. Avoiding responsibility may feel easier in the short term, but it only leads to long-term suffering. The problems do not disappear. They simply grow in the background, becoming harder to face over time. Taking responsibility begins with an honest assessment of your life. What are the recurring problems you face? What patterns keep repeating? What excuses have you been making? These are not easy questions, but they are necessary. If you are constantly struggling financially, is it really because of external circumstances? Or have you been irresponsible with money? If your relationships are always falling apart, is it because other people are the problem, or are you failing to communicate effectively, to set boundaries, or to choose the right people? If your health is declining, is it purely genetics, or are you neglecting your diet, exercise, and self-care? Self-reflection is uncomfortable because it strips away illusions. It forces you to confront reality without the comforting shield of excuses. But it is also liberating. The moment you recognize your role in your own struggles, you realize that you also hold the key to overcoming them. You are not powerless. You are not at the mercy of fate. You have the ability to make different choices, to develop new habits, to create a new reality. The habit of responsibility extends to every area of life. It is not just about the major decisions. It is about the small daily choices that shape your character. It is about showing up on time, following through on commitments, keeping your word, and holding yourself to a high standard even when no one is watching. No, it is about refusing to make excuses even when they are valid. It is about choosing growth over comfort, effort over ease, discipline over indulgence. When you take full responsibility for your life, something powerful happens. You stop being controlled by external forces. You no longer wait for the perfect conditions to take action. You no longer rely on others to determine your success. You realize that no matter what happens, you have the ability to adapt, to learn, to grow, and to move forward. Obstacles become challenges to overcome rather than reasons to quit. Failures become lessons rather than final verdicts. This mindset does not mean that life will be easy. Taking responsibility does not guarantee immediate success, nor does it eliminate hardship, but it does give you control. It allows you to respond to adversity with strength rather than helplessness. It turns you into someone who finds solutions instead of dwelling on problems. It forces you to rise above your circumstances rather than being defined by them. Most people will never embrace full responsibility for their lives because it is difficult. It requires effort, discipline, and a willingness to face uncomfortable truths. But those who do make this choice separate themselves from the masses. They take control of their future. They create meaning from struggle. They become the kind of people who build, who lead, who inspire. They become the kind of people who refuse to let life simply happen to them.